The morning sun gleamed off the mirrored windows of the Wexford corporate tower, catching the bustle of life below. Inside, in the crisp marble halls that smelled faintly of citrus polish and ambition, a man in his late 50s quietly pushed his mop across the floor. His name was Samuel Ortiz, and though his navy uniform was faded and his shoes scuffed, there was a calm dignity in the way he worked. Methodical, patient, and almost reverent, as if each floor tile deserved to shine. No one noticed him much, not really. To most employees he was invisible, just the janitor who smiled too much and hummed old songs while sweeping up the evidence of their busy lives. But that morning, everything would begin to change. A sudden commotion near the elevator broke his rhythm. A young employee had spilled coffee across the marble floor while rushing to impress the CEO, and Samuel moved instantly, bending down to clean it up before anyone slipped. As he worked, the new CEO, Amelia Grant, exited the elevator. She was in her mid-30s, sharp-eyed and impeccably dressed in a grey suit that matched the cold tone of her reputation. People said Amelia had built her empire on discipline and zero tolerance for mistakes. And as Samuel knelt there, she barely glanced at him, only long enough to mutter, "Be quick," before striding off to her meeting. Samuel only smiled faintly and said, "Yes, ma'am," as he kept wiping. He wasn't offended, he'd seen far worse. Life had taught him that people's hearts are often heavier than they let on. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change the world, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Every act of support helps us spread these true stories of hope and humanity. As the hours rolled by, Samuel continued his quiet routine, cleaning floors, emptying trash bins, fixing leaky faucets, tasks that most people took for granted. Yet when payday came each month, he did something remarkable. Without fail, he walked down to the local orphanage, St. Mary's Home for Children, and handed over half his paycheck. Not because he was rich or because someone told him to. He simply couldn't stand the thought of a child going to bed hungry or forgotten. No one at work knew this. Not until that fateful Thursday afternoon. It started when Amelia's assistant, Clara, misplaced a folder and went down to the janitor's room, thinking she'd left it there by mistake. The door was open just enough for her to see Samuel sitting at his small desk, carefully counting money into two piles. One was smaller, enough for his rent and meals. The other, much larger, he slid into an envelope labeled for the kids. Curious and moved, Clara asked him gently what it was for. Samuel looked up, surprised but not embarrassed, and explained in his simple way, "There's a home nearby. The children, they remind me of my daughter. I can't do much, but this helps them keep the lights on." Clara's throat tightened. She told no one at first, but the image stayed with her all day. Later that week, when Amelia demanded a last-minute cleaning of the conference room before a big investor meeting, Clara mentioned it without much thought, perhaps trying to soften her boss's heart. "Did you know," Clara said quietly, "the janitor donates half his salary to orphans?" Amelia frowned, half distracted by her laptop. "Half? That's impossible. He makes barely enough to live on himself." "I saw the envelopes," Clara replied softly. "He does it every month, even skipped buying new shoes because of it." For the first time in a long while, Amelia looked up, truly looked up. Something about that struck her deeply, though she didn't say it aloud. She had built her entire identity on control, on efficiency, on never showing weakness. But that night, long after everyone left, she sat in her glass-walled office, staring at the lights of the city. Her reflection in the window seemed hollow. She thought of her father, a man who had once been a janitor himself before she'd built this empire, and how she hadn't spoken to him before he passed away. The next morning, Amelia came in early. To her surprise, Samuel was already there, polishing the lobby floor. She stood quietly for a moment, watching him move. His hands were rough and weathered, yet every motion was steady, careful, as though this small act mattered. Finally, she stepped closer and asked, "Mr. Ortiz, is it true you donate half your pay to an orphanage?" Samuel paused, startled by her sudden interest. "Oh, yes, ma'am. It's not much, but they need it more than I do. Amelia studied him, unsure what to say. Why would you do that when you could barely afford? One spring morning, as sunlight streamed through the office windows, Amelia found Samuel quietly tending to the flower beds outside the building. She walked over and handed him an envelope, his name written in gold ink. Inside was a letter. It read, "Mr. Ortiz, because of you, we have learned that true leadership begins with compassion. You reminded us that greatness isn't measured by what we have, but by what we give. With gratitude, please accept this fund, not as a reward, but as a continuation of your kindness. The Samuel Ortiz Children's Foundation will now provide education and care for hundreds of children, all in your honor." Samuel looked up, his lips trembling. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say." Amelia smiled through tears. "Just keep doing what you do best, reminding us that kindness still exists." And for the first time since his family's passing, Samuel felt at peace. He still cleaned the floors every morning, humming softly, but now when people walked by, they smiled, greeted him by name, and sometimes even joined him for lunch. The walls that had once been cold and silent now carried warmth, not from the sunlight, but from the hearts that had been changed by one man's quiet generosity. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it. Subscribe to Kindness Chronicles to help us keep spreading stories that remind the world compassion is never wasted. And before you scroll away, leave a comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel, because sometimes one word of kindness can echo farther than you'll ever know.